Are your kohlrabi plants just not thriving the way you expected? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're decoding the secrets of a vegetable that gets overlooked way too often, but holds incredible potential. Our goal? To give you the exact step-by-step knowledge you need to time your planting perfectly and harvest those crisp, sweet kohlrabis right from your own garden.
You know, maybe you've faced this exact frustration. You wait for weeks and then, your harvest is cracked, it's tough as a rock, or maybe it's bolted, meaning it just shot up flowers way before it even formed a proper stem. Trust me, you're definitely not alone. These are literally the most common gardening woes for this crop. But here's the really good news. The absolute secret to perfect plants lies entirely in getting the timing and care exactly right. And that's exactly what we're going to fix today.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll be covering the secret to successful kohlrabi, the ideal planting time, proper planting steps, care and common mistakes, harvesting and storage, and finally, a quick summary to wrap it all up.
The secret to successful kohlrabi. So what actually makes this plant tick?
This is perhaps the single most important thing to remember. Despite its kind of alien appearance, kohlrabi is not a root. It's not a carrot or a radish. It's actually a highly shortened, thickened stem, commonly called a stem vegetable. And because it's a stem sitting exposed right there above the ground, it is incredibly sensitive to environmental factors. Once you grasp this, it completely makes sense why temperature swings and moisture affect it so drastically. Plus, as a quick aside, it's a total nutritional powerhouse. We're talking more vitamin C, potassium, and natural sugars than regular cabbage, a real game changer for your diet. Moving right along to Section 2, Ideal Planting Time. When exactly should we be putting these in the ground? Let's compare our two main growing seasons. For an early spring harvest, you'd typically sow your seeds in mid-February and transplant at the end of March. Now that's super popular, but it carries some pretty big risks with sudden spring frosts. On the flip side, the sources strongly point out that late autumn production is actually way more profitable. Why? Because the stems form during those nice, cool autumn months. That cooler development temperature means you get a much higher quality, crisper, and significantly sweeter crop.
And this brilliantly illustrates the life cycle of a late winter variety, which takes roughly 150 to 160 days. So, you start by sowing your seeds in June when the ground is nice and warm, and then transplant them outdoors in July. Then comes the magic. The growth continues through late summer and into autumn. You see, kohlrabi loves cool weather. Temperatures over 25 degrees Celsius, that's what makes it get woody and tough. The absolute sweet spot for a tender stem is between 15 and 18 degrees. Then, by November, you get to collect the reward for all your hard work.
Section 3, Proper Planting Steps. Let's get our hands dirty and look at the actual agricultural techniques.
Okay, so the planting process itself is a bit delicate. If you're starting seeds in a greenhouse, you're looking at about 5 to 6 grams of seeds per square meter. But here is a massive secret for early production, hardening off the seedlings. Before you move those young, fragile plants outside, you have to adapt them to the cold. But, and this is a huge but, this hardening off must not exceed 4 to 5 days. The sources are super firm on this. If you leave the seedlings out in the cold for too long, they panic. This triggers what we call bolting, where the plant just shoots up a flower stalk and completely forgets to form the vegetable part. Oh, and of course, only transplant outdoors once you are absolutely sure the hard freezes have passed.
Now, what's really interesting here is how much physical space these plants need, because it changes drastically based on the variety. Early varieties are pretty compact. You can plant them close together, like 30 by 25 centimeters on preformed ridges. But those late winter varieties? They are absolute giants. They develop massive leaf rosettes. You're going to need to space them out to at least 60 by 40 or even 80 by 40 centimeters on flat ground, just to ensure they get enough nutrients and proper air circulation.
Section 4, Care and Common Mistakes. Let's talk about how to avoid ruining a perfectly good harvest. So the crucial takeaway here is all about consistency. First up, water. Inconsistent watering or sharp swings in soil moisture, that is exactly what directly causes that ugly cracking in your kohlrabi. Setting up drip irrigation is literally your best friend for this. Second, aim for a slightly acidic to neutral soil pH, around 6.0 to 6.8. Third, and I cannot stress this enough, absolutely no fresh manure. Fresh manure or dumping way too much nitrogen fertilizer will literally destroy the taste of the vegetable. It just stimulates leaf growth at the expense of the stem. And finally, stick to a strict 2-year crop rotation. Do not plant kohlrabi anywhere you've grown cabbage, broccoli, or cauliflower recently. Otherwise, you're just inviting soil diseases.
-6 degrees Celsius. I really want to highlight this number because it perfectly illustrates just how amazingly resilient this plant is. Remember how high summer temperatures make it tough and woody? Well, on the flip side, a mature, well-developed kohlrabi can easily brush off brief temperature drops all the way down to -6 degrees. It is a true autumn champion for sure.
Moving into Section 5, harvesting and proper storage, because you definitely want to secure that hard-earned yield.
Once again, we're seeing a huge difference between the early and late seasons here. For early varieties, you really have to be on the ball. Harvest them exactly when they are between 7 and 10 centimeters wide. If you wait too long, they get hard and tasteless. You just take a knife and cut the stem about 1.5 centimeters below the vegetable. But late autumn varieties, completely different ballgame. You actually need to pull the entire plant straight out of the ground, roots and all, right before the heavy, lasting winter frosts hit. Why keep the roots? Because those attached roots literally keep the plant alive and fresh while it's sitting in winter storage. Now, to keep them perfectly crisp, you want to store them somewhere very cold, between 0 and 2 degrees Celsius, with incredibly high humidity, like around 95%. But wait, here is a fantastic pro tip from old master agronomists. Late winter varieties, like the Blue Winter, for example, are so incredibly robust that you can skip the fridge entirely. You can literally just leave them buried directly in the earth in your garden or even a cold cellar, and they will naturally overwinter, staying perfectly crisp all season long.
And that brings us to Section 6, summary and key recommendations.
So, what does this all mean for you? Well, we've learned that kohlrabi is a super sensitive stem that absolutely craves cool temperatures. We discovered that going for a late planting in June actually gets you the sweetest, highest quality harvest. We also saw that hardening off your seedlings for more than 5 days is a huge mistake, and that setting up consistent drip irrigation is the secret to preventing those frustrating cracks. So only one question remains. Are you ready to apply these highly specific, proven techniques in your own garden this season? I seriously challenge you to give it a try. The results, those crisp, sweet stems absolutely packed with vitamins, will be worth every single minute of your effort. Finally, just a quick professional reminder before we wrap up. The information we discuss in this explainer serves as a really solid, reliable general guide, but always keep in mind that you might need to make some slight adaptations based on your specific local microclimate, the actual soil type sitting in your backyard, and of course the exact hybrid or seed variety you decide to go with. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you a tremendously successful and abundant gardening season. Grab those seeds, it's time to get planting.